Thank you so much. Well, welcome to the session, the Lean Mean Planning Machine with myself and April. Thanks, April, for your partnership in this. I really appreciate it. So look forward to it. All right, Grace, next slide, please. All right, this is what we're going to do. The Lean Canvas, why use it? What is it? How to use it? Pretty simple. And then we're going to let you talk and ask questions, and hopefully we'll give you some great insights. So next slide. There is a time and a place for a business plan, and then there's not. Next slide. So why not? Well, in my experience, no one reads them. I've actually had in my life one time to write a business plan, and that's when I bought a manufacturing company and took a loan from a bank. Well, that bank said, you know, you need to have a business plan. I'm like, look, I'm hawking my house, putting it up for collateral, my partner's house, we've got all the money. They says, nope, you need a business plan. So I wrote a real quick business plan. They never read it, but it was a checkbox. Now, I'm not saying you never need one, but that's my experience. Usually early stage startups, which is where I work, don't have enough information to really write a business plan. So the plan isn't the important thing. And you can spend your time a lot better. Go out there, talk to people, talk to customers, and actually do things. Entrepreneurship, you should have a bias toward action and a bias toward doing things, as opposed to a bias toward thinking and writing things. You need the plan, but keep that balance with a lot of action. In fact, one of the gentlemen, his newsletter I read, he says, spend 1/3 of your time studying, 2/3 of your time acting. So, and second, and lastly here, business plans typically make you fall in love with your fantasy, because you get no interaction or with anybody, usually customers. And I think Steve Blank, who developed what we'll talk about soon, the business model, or one of the developers of the business model canvas, said, no business plan survives first contact with a customer. So with that, let's have the next slide, please. All right. So I teach a version of the business plan that Canvas, or the Lean Canvas, and I focus a lot on the customer and the problem. So next slide. We start here. Typically, when you're thinking about a startup, when you're thinking about, what do you want to do, you're thinking about a user. You're thinking about a problem that user has, and you're thinking about, usually, or you should be thinking fairly specifically. And you should understand the difference between customer and user. Who pays you? Who just uses you? Who pays for something that you use? So be specific and concrete. Many entrepreneurs just, oh yeah, I want this to be for everybody. Well, you'll find out later, and we'll talk about it, but that's a prescription for failure. Next slide. So how do you find this all out? How do you identify your users? You use their tools called personas and archetypes and other types of tools. These help you develop empathy for the user. Why do you want empathy? Well, you want to understand them. You want to understand them deeply so that you can actually help them by solving a problem or providing something that they need. Next slide, please. So once you understand that, you look at the problem. So what is the problem that they have and that you're trying to solve? Sometimes you start with the problem, and let's say you have a problem yourself, and you start trying to find the solution for it. And that's perfectly fine, because a lot of successful startups are the ones who solve a problem for themselves. So, but understanding that, it's pretty easy when you have the problem, but it's not always that easy when somebody else or many people have the problem. So again, it's understanding that problem. So that's next. You understand your user, you understand the problem. Next slide. So how do you do that? Well, there's two things you can do. One is, just do a lot of internet search and do a lot of research. But at this stage particularly, the most valuable thing is primary research and user observation. Actually getting out there, seeing how your users behave, what they're doing. There are many ways of doing user observation. You can watch people, you can interact with people, you can pose a problem to them, you can give them a little something, a prototype, whatever it is, you can actually get interaction. So make sure you are doing primary research at this stage, interacting with your user and observing them and understanding them. Next slide, please. Once you have your understanding of the user and the problem, now you can say, okay, what do I build to solve that, right? Sometimes people start with the solution and say, hey, I've got this cool thing. Who needs it? Well, as you'll see and you'll find out that that's oftentimes the wrong way to go about it. Not that you can't be successful in that way, because you can, but that just means you need to start with, even if you have a solution, you need to go back, start with the customer, the problem, and then look at the solution. And you find the customer and the problem that your solution fits. So next slide, please. There's a lot of different ways you can create the solution for just testing at this stage. And primarily it's prototyping and what I call a concierge solution. So if you're thinking about an automated marketplace or an automated platform, the very first thing you should do is not build that. Many people have lost hundreds of thousands to billions of dollars building platforms that nobody uses. So you do things manually first, and you walk through the process that you think that you're going to, how you think your solution will look. And you do that step by step. You do it manually. You do it, just with whatever. Prototyping is another way. Don't build a final finished product to show people at the beginning, because what they'll do is they'll assume that it's final and they won't give you good feedback. If you give sort of prototypes that are rough and even pencil drawn or made by a piece of paper, they'll understand that input is welcome. So at this stage, you want input, you want to do things manually, and then you want to go to the next step. Next slide, please. All right, now, once you've done that, you begin to understand your value proposition. You understand your pitch, right? Now you're pretty clear on, what your customer is, what their problem is, what your solution is, and that forms the basis of a pitch and a value proposition, which is a single, clear, compelling message that people will understand and actually buy into. Next slide, please. All right, so there's a number of pitches that you can make. You can do anything from 1 or 2 or 3 words. Nike's just do it, right? That's their tagline. It's pitch. Everybody knows that's Nike. There's a lot of, let's say, an email subject line pitch, which is a part of a sentence, a fragment sentence. There's actually a 1-sentence pitch that the Founder Institute does, and they even have a competition. What's the best 1-sentence pitch? One of the better resources or best resources that you can find on pitching is Dan Pink. He wrote a book, but one chapter of his book, To Pitch is Human, is available for free on PDF out on the internet. And it's a wonderful chapter that goes through all the various types and levels of pitches, which then you can translate into your value proposition. Next slide, please. All right, now you know your customer, you know your problem, you've got a solution, you've got value proposition. Now you say, all right, where do I find all the people that look like this? And that's really when you can say, okay, here's the group of people that I want to engage, because now I know them. I know what they read. I know what they, where they live. I know where they go. I know what they, what what matters to them. So now I can engage them properly. And more important, and just as importantly, is at that point in time, now you can effectively use what's called channel partners, partners to find more of them. So if you want to find lawyers, hey, you can, there's the ABA, the American Bar Association, or there are trade groups for dentists. There are groups that will help you if you can find a good value proposition and create a good partnership to actually reach many, many more people. Next slide, please. And so the next line or the next row really talks a little about your metrics, because now you've kind of understood everything. You know what you're doing. Before that, you don't really have a lot of metrics that you can that you can keep track of. Certainly, as you're gathering data, there's a lot of data and data analytics. But now, once you're at this stage, you actually need that data and can actually use that data in effective ways. So you can find out, how many customers there are, what do they look like, and how do you know that they're having the problem and that you're solving it. Next slide, please. This is where market research, both primary and secondary. You can get lots of reports. You can get a lot of summary reports for free that give general numbers, enough that give you information. Or you can buy some expensive reports, or these reports are available at public libraries, at your university libraries. Databases are available at the university libraries that otherwise you'd have to pay for, and you can get a whole lot of good information from that. At this point, it's definitely worthwhile to go out and look more broadly, secondary research, find market sizes, understand trends, is this a growing industry, etc. So this is the time where you really can spend a lot more time internally, because you've been out and you've learned from your customers. Next slide, please. Now, on the other side, of course, is your solution, right? So what are the key metrics of your solution? How do you deliver it? Are you manufacturing it? Are you buying it? Is it a part of something else? Is it software only? Is it software and hardware? What is it? So now that you understand all of this, you're building your solution, you're getting it, in various forms out to customers. Now you can actually get and develop meaningful metrics about your solution. So you can, see if what you need, whether you have the resources yourself, or whether you need subcontractors or employees, or whether you need partners to actually provide your solution and deliver your solution. So delivery is one of the most important things once you start to scale, and that's when you start to make the money. Next slide, please. And this is where there's a lot of times where you actually can start by doing things that don't scale. Going back to this idea of doing things manually. At each step that as you grow and as you scale, you do things that you won't necessarily be doing the same way later, because you don't want to get ahead of yourself by building things that won't work. So there's an art to scaling and building. You learn, you automate a little bit, you learn more by doing things that you wouldn't normally do for a long time, and then you automate that, and then you add and build. You don't build something big automated, because then once it changes, too many things change. Half the time you throw away the whole thing. This way, you actually end up building things that are robust and that are scalable. And if you think even about Amazon, when they have billions of dollars in resources, when they tried their first Amazon store without employees, a self-checkout store, they didn't build 10 of them or 20 of them. They built one of them in a market, learned all about it, and then even after that, they only put a few in. Even a company with that set of resources doesn't go off and build way too much before they understand a whole lot. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, and then down you get to the last row, which is all the details about financing cost. Before this, it's really hard to know a lot of your costs, and that's fine. You have to have some ideas. You have to be able to do some basic forecasting, and that's great. But once you know all of this, then you need to do your financial modeling. The first part, the costs, are usually typically fairly easy. The what does something cost to buy if you buy it and then incorporate it into your product? What is it, the cost to deliver? Do you have, again, subcontractors? How much do they cost? Some of the funny things I always see, particularly with students and young entrepreneurs, is they say, oh, it costs me this much to buy the material and I'll sell it for 2 times that. And then that's the way I make money. And they forget about overhead. They forget about to pay themselves. They forget about a whole bunch of things that actually are in that cost. And they forget about the cost of growth. And so, pricing, costing, while it's easy in one sense, there's also some basic mistakes that I've seen made. Next slide, please. Okay, and the other side is the hardest side. And this is the side where virtually everybody falls down. There are very few startups that I've ever seen that have actually been able to predict their revenues to any accurate degree. But you have to. And you have to make assumptions, and that's where the most important things are. What are the assumptions on which you're building your financial model? I don't care, if you show me a financial model, if you don't have your assumptions and you can't tell me where you got your numbers, I'm just not going to believe you. And most of the time, my experience is that it takes twice as long, twice as much cost, and you get you'll get half as much revenue. So usually, if you multiply those out, that's about a factor of 8 that people are wrong, and that's been pretty proven. So learn, understand the assumptions on which you make your financials, and be able to talk about them, be able to justify them, and then people can only argue about the assumption as opposed to the process and the financials. And that's great, because they say, okay, what if this, then that? And that's easy. So next slide, please. And this doesn't have to be a complex process at the beginning, and certainly won't be, but learn how to develop your business model, talk about your business model, and learn about how to do sort of that back of the napkin financials. Assumptions are the most important thing, and then the process is after that. So next slide, please.
All right, well, thank you, Nick, for this wonderful kind of overview of why we use canvases and walking through the Lean Canvas. Again, my name's April, and I'm going to talk through how are we going to use the canvas, because it's one thing to fill it out, but it's not a static document. It's not something we fill out, then we hang on our wall and say, look what a great job we did. It's something that we're utilizing all the time as our kind of go-to plan for the venture. And it's wonderful, the fact that it's on one page, which makes it easy to do. So you might be noticing that my canvas is a little bit different than Nick's. I use kind of the more standard Lean Canvas, based on the book, but you'll notice all of the boxes are the same. Nick just kind of moved things around a little bit and added a second box, but all of the information is still the same. Next slide, please. So one thing is, as we're looking at this, we're able to balance kind of the internal and external aspects of running our venture. As we're going out, we're thinking of that external customer-facing side of our business as well as the internal-facing business. So what are we doing, and how are we connecting with our customers and trying to generate revenue? Next slide, please. Because there's 3 generally accepted stages of going through the startup process. Generally, our first stage is that problem solution fit, doing exactly what Nick mentioned, where we're trying to make sure that we have a problem worth solving for a particular set of customers. So we're validating in the market that, there's actually something, this is something people want, that there's an issue, there's a gap in what exists currently. Next slide, please. And when we're looking at the canvas, we're really focusing on those answers, those different points that we put in the problem, solution, and customer segments. We're deep diving on what is that problem, who are the customers that have it, and what are some of the ideas for solutions we have at this point. And we're, yes, keeping the information that we have, or maybe adapting the information we have in the other boxes, but those are the ones we're really focusing on. And what we're doing is going out and validating that, as Nick said, out of, getting out of the building and talking with actual potential customers. Next slide, please. And so that could be through that secondary research. It could be through, which is, going online and looking at established reports. We're interviewing customers. Oftentimes, we use the guideline of, talking to 50 different potential customers and doing those interviews and asking them those open-ended questions to get a really good feel of what is the problem as they see it. What are the gaps? What are those kind of things that they're doing to duct tape a solution together? And how are they giving you information to then help you build a solution that adequately solves that problem? And so we are validating, we're out there talking with potential customers, and we are developing kind of those prototypes, minimum viable products. So kind of that key, set of solution that adequately solves a problem for our customers without all the bells and whistles, that we might want to add later on. Next slide, please. As we're moving on to finding that product market fit, and that's that point where we created something that people want. So we've gone through that iterative process of figuring out what it is we should be creating, what we should be selling. And people are saying, you know what, you got it right, I want one. And I'm going to tell my friend that they should buy one too. Next slide, please. And so as we're working on our product market fit, we're really refining what it is we're selling. What is the value proposition? Why are we worthy in getting of the sale and worthy of getting our customers' attention? And so we're working more on the solution, our value proposition, and those activities that drive all of our revenue so that we're able to really start getting traction with sales. Next slide, please. And here's some of those things. We're doing maybe a little bit more product development. We're road mapping some suggestions that we're getting from our customers. We are launching in the marketplace. We are testing, we're evolving, we're pivoting as we're trying to get to that product market fit, that point where we figured out what is that thing that people want. Next slide. And then finally, there's scaling. We don't want to spend the money or the resources or staff up until we really get to that point where we figured out the right thing, and then we can really kind of throw the gas on the fire and really start to accelerate the growth of our organization. Next slide. And that's where we really figure out, what is that right channel? How are we communicating or selling to our potential customers? How are we really creating revenue? We are kind of, as Nick was saying, trying some different things out, trying to figure out how are we generating revenue? And oftentimes most companies go through a few different ways of generating revenue. What are our costs, and refining what those costs are? So we're really working on some of the more businessy aspects of the organization at this point. Next slide, please. And then that's where we start going through our sales, our marketing, our hiring, our growth, the expansion, all of those, great fun things to make, that revenue curve go up and to the right. Next slide. And so one thing that I wanted to do, this is a little bit hard to read, but this was a completed canvas. Grace, I don't know if we're able to zoom in a little bit, but this was a completed canvas that I often use as an example. We all have some kind of general knowledge of a lemonade stand, right? A lot of us have seen one. We've seen one on TV. We might have stopped at one. We might have had one as a kid. And so it's a great, simple type of business that we could look at. So I made a real general canvas for a lemonade stand. I'm saying our problem are hot summers, lack of beverage availability, say in my neighborhood, and the things that are available tend to be expensive. Our customers would be commuters, maybe people walking to or from the train or to and from work, parents and kids, families in the area who might be out for a walk and stop by, or just people in the neighborhood. Solution is a lemonade stand in our convenient location with affordable prices, leading to our unique value proposition of fresh organic lemonade available when and where you need it most. We're going to be connecting with our customers through the stand itself, maybe signs, posted in the neighborhood. Maybe we're going to advertise on local channels like local Facebook groups. And then leveraging some word of mouth by people who are been out and about, maybe walking through the neighborhood. Our revenue is we're selling cups of lemonade, so it's pretty straightforward. And some of our costs are lemonade ingredients, maybe those advertising costs for, making copies of our signage, the materials to make our stand. And if I need to pay, say, my children or someone else to run this stand, so they are my sales personnel. So these are, the main aspects of my canvas. And so if we are then thinking through how to utilize this as we're going through this learning process, every time we make a change to one of these boxes, that change then ripples through the entire canvas. So I'll give you a few examples and we'll see how we can see this, ripple through. What if I move my lemonade stand from my neighborhood to a soccer field on a Saturday? If you're where I live in the suburbs. A soccer field on a Sunday is full of kids playing soccer, families, parents, a lot of people. What are some of those changes I might make to my canvas? Anyone want to throw an idea in the chat? Maybe I need to diversify and not just offer lemonade, but offer snacks. Maybe also water, right? Maybe sunscreen. So as I'm diversifying my solution, then I could change my value proposition and what it is that I'm offering to my customers. That might allow me to then change my channels because I'm no longer, say, in a neighborhood. I'm now at a larger field and I can be promoting a more known place where I am with my greater set of products available and may be able to reach more people. That also diversifies my revenue streams while also increasing my costs, right? What if now, for those of you in Chicago, I'm now in a high-end neighborhood in Lincoln Park? Changes my customer segments potentially, right? Maybe less families, more young people. Maybe my solution is no longer just plain organic lemonade. That's not enough. Maybe now it is charcoal-infused lavender lemonade or something more fancy and sophisticated, right? Maybe I'll have more of a brunch option. Oh, no, I was going to say maybe I'll make a spiked lemonade, but I think I'm going to run into some legal issues. We'll scrap the spiking. But for my charcoal-infused lavender lemonade, I can then charge those higher price points, right? Which increases my revenue while also increasing my cost because now I'm adding more ingredients. But hopefully the premium for my fancy lemonade will outweigh that, right? My channels might diversify where, yes, I could put up some signage, but also maybe I'm using more Instagram rather than a Facebook group. So then I can diversify my marketing channels based on what it is I'm doing. So you can see how just these small little ways of making changes to my business, whether that's through location, through product diversification, through maybe adding more premium aspects, I'm able to then make different changes along with the rest of my canvas. So as I'm going out and validating, I'm learning more, I'm talking to customers, I'm then able to go back to my canvas, make the appropriate changes so that I have a good cohesive strategy that is appealing to my customers and hopefully creating a more sustainable organization for the long term. All right, next slide, please. So that is our entire presentation on kind of what the Canvas is and how you can use it in your own venture as you're going through the steps of maybe starting or growing a new company. Nick and I put together a few resources relating to the Canvas and some of these early stage kind of tasks that you'll be working on. One is the book Running Lean by Ash Maurya. Nick, you probably know how to say it better than I do, which is available at bookstores. He has a wonderful website at LeanStack, and then also many libraries have access to a free copy, free digital copy of Running Lean also. Canvanizer is a wonderful tool where that's the Canvas I put together that is online. You can also share it with team members so that everyone's able to kind of put together their own or have a collaboration as you're putting together your Canvas. And then Nick, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the other two.
Sure. So thanks, April. That was really great. And, giving your perspective of how to use the Canvas has really explained a lot of the things that I just alluded to sort of in concept form. So thank you. Yeah, the two last links are two platforms that will actually help you to walk through your startup process. Both of them use version of the Lean Canvas. One of them gives you some choices of different canvases to use depending on whether you're building a hardware project or a software project, and the other one gives you different styles of the canvas that you can use. So, but both of them you can check out. They have great resources on their website. They also have articles, videos, etc. about each of these sections of the Canvas, and I highly recommend that you go and check out both of those. One of the things that April told you a little bit more than I did is that the Lean Canvas, or any canvas that you use, is a living document. And one of the reasons I like it a lot is because it's so easy to change. As she walked through the example of the lemonade stand, when you change something, other things change. Well, beyond that, one of the most effective ways to use the Canvas that I don't see very many people use it is to use it over time. And you can actually, like LeanStack has a version, Startup Rocket and Startup Wind do, where you create a digital version of the Canvas. You can actually start filling in what you know, which is usually not much at the beginning. Go out and do stuff, come back, fill out another version, okay? And then you can actually get comments from your team members or your advisors, mentors that can help you to think about your business using the Canvas as your basic tool. Then you go out and do more things, fill out maybe another part of the Canvas, and then you write out another one. So you can actually do this where you have a discipline that every week you have another version of the Canvas, and by a certain amount of time you can actually go backwards and see the progress. You can say, oh, wait a minute, you know what, I thought about this back then, what did I do, and what was a comment made by my mentor or advisor back then, and then you're actually using this as a tool. You can imagine trying to do this with a Word document that's 50 pages long with different charts and stuff. You're spending most of your time, trying to find out what the heck you should change. And as April says, something that changes one place changes another place. So now you're changing a 50-page document. That's why I don't recommend using it. A business plan for actually building a business. Like, there are times when you need it, but for building the business, tools like the Lean Canvas, the Business Model Canvas, the User-Centered Canvas. There's a number of different canvases out there now that actually have a really good specific type canvas tool. Even like Value Proposition Canvas, for example, is a great little tool that works within that one square of the Lean Canvas or Business Model Canvas that will actually help teach you how to write a compelling, or find and write the compelling value proposition. So John asked a question that, do you have a preferred Lean framework? So for me, yes, I prefer, and I follow Ash Maurya's book. So Eric Ries, he was a student in Steve Blank's class back in it's either Berkeley or Stanford, I think Berkeley, and he then took a lot of what Steve Blank taught in his lectures and created what's called the Lean Startup methodology and wrote the book, The Lean Startup. So that's a good historical book to read. Osterwalder and Strategyzer, which is his company, primarily does a lot of consulting and a lot of consulting for large companies. The reason I don't use their version of the Canvas is because there's more on the Osterwalder Business Model Canvas than usually you would even think about in an early stage startup. So the Ash Maurya, whose work is on leanstack.com, it first created this canvas that said, okay, you have the customer on one end, the product on the other end, and everything works toward the middle, toward your value proposition, and then works down toward the costs. I just kind of shifted around a little bit. I created 3 rows just to have the second row in there that helps you work sort of top row in, then bottom row for each of those, and then the fund, and then the funds. It's just a little version, but it's primarily the Lean Stack. And Ash Maurya has actually created the Leaner Canvas, which literally is 2 or actually 4 squares, and it's all just customer and problem, because he realized too that there's so much you don't know at this early stage. You need to focus on the customer and the problem, period, at the beginning. If you're not focusing on that, it's a problem. You've got a problem. And then once you understand that, you just build all that stuff up. So Meyer asks, Eric Ries's Lean Startup does not provide the canvas. It's a history book. It talks about the process of a Lean Startup, which is really all it is. It comes from the Six Sigma, from the manufacturing space, where you try to find root cause, and that's done primarily by asking a series of questions, and usually they're why. Why is this? Well, because of that. Is that really the reason? Well, why is that? And it goes on. And then you make small iterations, and the whole Six Sigma process focuses on that process of finding root cause and then creating iterations to make the next step. And that concept was then taken to the startup world by Steve Blank, and Eric Ries wrote it up, but they didn't provide you the tools and these other like the canvases. That was done by Osterwalder, by Maurya, and then, like I said, many other versions of the canvases that are some very interesting. And there's no really right answer. There's no right canvas to use. It's just kind of like if you have 3 different hammers, you just grab one, and if it works, great. If you need a feature of the big claw hammer that you don't get in the ball peen hammer, grab the claw hammer. Yeah, that's fine. So
I just like to say that entrepreneurship goes to the grocery store of a good idea, just fills them up. We like to steal from pretty much everyone else and just apply it to what we do, which is basically what Lean Startup does. It provides a wonderful kind of methodology, like a framework you can use as going through like this whole talk to customers, create hypotheses, test hypotheses, validate hypotheses. It's a great kind of idea framework that you can utilize as you're going through creating a business. Personally, I have never even finished the book. I find it very hard to read. However, there's like 6 million articles or Medium posts that kind of give you the gist that you can get by. I think Asha's book, Running Lean, was a much easier way and ties in a canvas that I prefer. So I kind of lean a little bit more on kind of the Running Lean or Lean Stack information. Osterwalder, I don't really like the business model canvas. However, I really do like their value proposition canvas book, which is very nice. Another book that I'll add on, which is often free in universities, is called, I just happen to have all my books next to me. This one by Bill Aulet, Disciplined Entrepreneur. There's a book and a workbook. And it's a really nice, like, it's probably one of the closest to a step 1, step 2, step 3 process to walk you through if you're doing this on your own, which incorporates a lot of this stuff that's out there into kind of one guide. So that is, you know, pretty nice if you're looking through. I'll add this.
While April's typing, I have a lot of respect for Bill Aulet. He runs the MIT Entrepreneurship Center. So, you know, MIT is pretty well regarded in the startup world. And Bill is one of the highly respected entrepreneurial educators. I like his methodology. While I don't follow it rigorously, as April says, it's a way, it's a really good description of a step-by-step process. The only fault I have with, you know, a complete process like that is that out of the 5 companies I bought and built, none of them followed that process linearly, and no one startup will. So the way you use all these tools, including, you know, the complete process like a disciplined entrepreneurship, is you use them where and as you need them. So if you understand the full roadmap, like Bill provides, for example, then you know, yeah, look, I'm in customer discovery now. I need to do that. Oh, okay, let me look at this section of disciplined entrepreneurship. I'll also look at this section of Lean. I'll also look at this section of what Strategizer's doing, and you use those tools to build it. Every single business is different from every single other business. Even the copycats are different from each other because they're different teams working on them. They're working on different markets, you know, even though they might say they're on the same ones, but that's never true. So I love the frameworks, and you know, I teach design frameworks. In fact, I'll put a title of a book. I'll let April say something while I type the title of a book that I really like from a design standpoint. So,
yeah, and the nice thing about all of these books, or you know, you can get the general gist of most of them on like through blog posts or Medium posts or videos if you're not really a book person, is that they're not sit down and read books. You know, it's, you know, you read a chapter and then you go do something, and then you come back and read a chapter and then go do something, you know, so it's very much an active process. You know, as, you know, Nick said earlier, entrepreneurship is a bias towards action. So we don't just sit around books and kind of contemplate on it. You read something, you learn something, and then go do something. And that's the hardest part, is actually just doing things, you know, getting out there, talking to people, putting yourself out there, just starting. You know, I always say, like, if you don't do it, who is, right? You know, there's no better time than now. Even though now is never a good time, it's not going to be a better time some other magic future time, you know. You will never, you know, wait for that more money or more contacts or more network. You just have to start building it where you are now. So I always say just start, you know, is a big piece of it.
Yeah, Meyer asks a good question. Do you use the Lean Canvas weekly for your companies, for example, filling each block every week? You don't. I mean, you could be on one block for a month if you're really building a company, right? You could be on, you know, really on one area or even a sub area. The Canvas, by its nature, is a really big high-level tool. And so each block has just a ton of stuff inside of it that you have to do. This is a summary. And that's why it's important to have, is it's an overview summary. Behind it, there's a lot of work. You know, as April said, she recommends 50 interviews for, you know, just customer Lean. If you take a Lean startup course like the iCore course, they want you to do 100 interviews every single week. And yeah, I mean, and they'll rip you if you don't. So that's a very intense work. So the Lean Canvas should be used iteratively, but you might be, like I said, on one area for a whole long time, or you might be working in two areas for a whole long time if you're really building a business. But it's more, it's the interaction, it's the activity that's important, but the summary is important for your mentors, for your advisors, for your team that maybe is not involved in everything. It's a way to keep everybody in a common place. So that's one of the main purposes of it. But it should be a living, breathing document to the extent that it can be.
Thank you both so much. We'll wait a little longer to see if any more questions come in, but this was very informative. I definitely learned a lot, so I appreciate it. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to chat them in. We still have time for a couple more.
And please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me just by typing my name. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in the world, so not hard to find.
Yeah, same here. Please feel free to connect. Also, if there's anything that I'm sure the saying goes for Nick, if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to talk through, more on these topics or answer any questions you have about getting started.
And I'll make one shameless plug. Last year, I was named to be the director of the Master of Technological Entrepreneurship at Illinois Institute of Technology, and it's focused on STEM students becoming entrepreneurs. It's a professional master's, but the unique feature of it is that you are actually working on your business from the day you start your master's degree to the day you graduate. So there's a capstone, which out of 30 credits can be up to 12 credits of working on the project. You take your classes in parallel. What you learn from your classes informs your project, and that's a unique degree. I haven't seen that anywhere, but as I said to you, spend 1/3 time learning, 2/3 time building, and that sort of answers Meyer's question. It says, elaborate on your quote, 1/3 study, 2/3 action. Especially when you're building a startup, you should actually be doing things constantly, iterating, engaging customers, and then you should be, learning as well. I have a student right now in one of my independent study classes who's building a real business and has quite a lot of revenue right now. He has a partner and several part-time students. In fact, I'll give a shameless plug. If anybody likes Japanese rice balls, I'll put it in this is a startup, Onigiri Kororin. So Kororin is the name of the company, and he's building this company, and he spends, most of his time making the product, delivering it to customers, but he's reading a book a week. He's working with me as on class on the independent study. In fact, we've got a class this afternoon, and he's building his business, but also planning his business and studying how to grow it. So, yeah, he does most of his work on his sales on Instagram, actually, which is beautiful. As you might know, the Japanese are very famous for seriously high quality, and everything shows in the quality that he does. So. And the food is delicious. I have it almost every week, and it's wonderful. So, a couple shameless plugs. That's what you do when you're an entrepreneur.
I'm a true entrepreneur.
And April knows because she's executive director of a group that supports entrepreneurs. So.
Well, that sounds super cool. Well, thank you so much, Nick and April. This has been super helpful, and I hope students walk away ready to apply some of these concepts to their own startups and ventures. And also thank you everyone for attending our event. We would love for you to share your feedback of the event on your Instagram stories or other social media platforms, and just tag at Chicago Startup Week to let us know what you thought. We'd love your feedback. And lastly, before we end, we're giving out our next raffle prize. So from the audience, Trisha Russo is walking away with a $15 Amazon gift card. Congrats, Trisha. We'll follow up with you for more details. For the audience, I would like to encourage you to head to the main stage for our next event, which is Advisory Boards for Startups, what every entrepreneur needs to know.
And
So in
as you
order,
do that, we want to give a big clap to Grace. Thank you for doing a wonderful job. You made my life easier. I know that. And April's too.
happy to do it.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for being here. So April, you're a wonderful partner. It's always great to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Nick. Thanks for sharing the stage with us.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Alrighty, so we'll see you on just the main stage. If you click stage, that'll take you to the next event. So this event is now over, and we'll see you over there. Alrighty, bye everyone.
Bye all. Best of success to all of you.